Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Dugout podcast, episode 112. And of course, the only match of the Scottish Premiership weekend was the Dundee Derby. So, me and my usual co-host Alex thought, what better way to go over it than get a fan from each side on to speak about the Derby. We've got on the winning side, Calum McCaffery, who you might know best from doing the Dundee TV commentary on the matches, and we've also got very a lot of credit to him coming on despite his team losing at the weekend. It's Andy Winton, or you might know him better on X as DUFC Stats. First of all, Callum, how are you? And what did you make of the game at the weekend?
I'm very good. Yeah. I thought it was a great weekend, uh, all around, to be fair. As far as the game goes, I thought we played well enough to win it. It's always difficult to give a sort of subjective opinion when it comes to your own team in a derby. But I thought we played reasonably well. I thought we defended really well, limited United's to not particularly clear-cut chances. I thought their best spell sort of came in sort of like the last 20 minutes of the game. I thought Dundee defended that really well. I thought Ryan Astley and Owen Bevan were excellent throughout the game. And all in all, I just thought it was a really good performance. And, it was interesting listening to Stephen Presley after the game basically talk about how the players hadn't really carried out his tactical instructions. So the fact that they haven't done that and they've still managed to come out with a win is very encouraging, and long may it continue.
Andy, your sort of initial thoughts on what I imagine was the polar opposite to Callum's evening on Saturday?
You didn't tell me the DTV commentator would be on this. I might have rethought it. Callum, good to see you again. No, in all seriousness, I think Callum's summary is pretty fair. It was a disappointing performance, well, disappointing result from United, and a disappointing performance. If you listen to Goodwin after, he's become, I would say, increasingly obsessed with stats over the last few months. I've noticed it more in interviews, and this isn't to go full your dam mode and ripping up, anything to do with kind of final third entries, possession, shots on target. But I think Callum's point is key. United might have had a higher XG, way more shots, 68% possession. But if you actually break down the clear-cut chances that United created in the game, I think Yoro had a shot at the start of the second half, which was a good save from Goodman. And then after that, maybe a handful of half slightly good chances after United were already 2-0 down, which I think is key when you've got to look at that. It's kind of about, we weren't really creating clear-cut chances while the game was alive. And it was a well-managed game from Dundee in that they didn't have a barrel load of chances, but, it's a phenomenal strike from Dre Wright and then a bit of fortune with the second goal, but you take that when you get it. And I actually saw the game out. I can't remember the last derby where, Dundee battered us about 18 months ago in a derby, but actually they were hanging on because it was 3-2 and Louis Moult missed a late chance because they seemed not to be able to handle leads in derbies at that point, albeit they won the game. But what I mean is not handle leads comfortably despite the fact they were so dominant, whereas I felt on Saturday, without being dominant, they were very comfortable.
Yeah, and Alex, what were your sort of initial thoughts and reaction to the scoreline? One, did it surprise you, or was it one you expected going into the game? Or
I think it was. I feel like these derbies are always, it's a kind of a cliche, but they're always a tough one to call. Especially, I feel like the Dundee derby the past few years has been a difficult game to sort of call, just in because another cliche form goes out the window. It didn't this time, in my opinion. Obviously, um, Dundee are coming off the back of a defeat to Aberdeen, but I feel like in general they've been quite good this season, whereas Dundee United have struggled. They've conceded a lot of goals. Obviously, they had that opening day draw with Rangers that made everyone think Dundee United were really, really good. But then it's sort of it's shaken out that Rangers are terrible, and so it's so yeah. I think it was definitely a difficult one to call. Andy mentioned, their terrific strike from Trey Wright. One thing that I thought was really strange, I'm sure, Ethan, you've got this down as a talking point, it was the overturned yellow card. It was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in my life. I'm sure the lads will have something to say about it. But yeah, those were just my thoughts on the game in general.
Yeah, no, I had that one down. That was certainly one of the major discussion points, you would say. And I think it's something I've seen one example of. There might have been more in the World Cup, the mistaken identity, and that was when the Switzerland striker Breland Bolo was shown a second yellow card when he originally got, I think it was Leandro Paredes for Argentina that got booked for a foul on him, but there was no foul to be seen. It was a complete simulation. It went to VAR and then he got a second yellow and sent off, but I don't know why there was a yellow card in the first place here, and then I don't know why the yellow card changed hands. I don't know what you guys thought of that, Calum. What did you make of that sort of strange incident in the game?
Yeah, I've been looking up this mistaken identity rule because I don't think anybody like in the papers has been able to properly explain it clearly. So like just looking it up, I'm still not convinced that it applies here because as far as I can tell, looking at the rule, um, like you can only do it if I mean mistaken identity is kind of self-explanatory. You do it if you've booked the wrong person. So I mean, from my perspective, the only reason that I think David Dickinson's gone to VAR and booked Finnegan is because he thinks Finnegan's committed a foul at some point in that sequence. And I've watched it back over and over again, and I cannot see where he thinks he's seeing a foul anywhere in that passage of play. Basically, what's happened is Dickinson's made a mistake. He's made a mistake, and because it's not a foul by Oro. He nicks the ball off of Finnegan. Finnegan keeps going, stands on the ball and goes over. Now you can account for the referee making a mistake. It's a crowded sort of area of the pitch. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of noise coming from the stands as well. It's not long after Dundee scored, so you can allow him the sort of benefit of the doubt for making a mistake. But I think they have vastly overcorrected. And I was watching the ref watch thing that they were doing on that they do on Sky with Dermot Gallagher. I think he made the point that VAR got too microscopic, like they were just zeroing in on that incident, seeing if there was something that they could change. And I think that's the case there. They've just completely overcorrected, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think maybe their opinion, it was one yellow card that was a wrong decision to maybe give someone else a yellow card that was less of a wrong decision. But I think if you're given even a foul either way or a yellow card either way, it's the wrong decision in that situation. But probably eventually, I think with VAR, I think most people would agree that despite whether we want it or not, it's not going anywhere. And I think we're only getting to that stage where yellow cards are going to be corrected in every incident where a booking's handed out.
Yeah, I think just to jump in here, I think Callum's point about sort of them overcorrecting is absolutely correct, and it's it's getting that's what frustrates me. Everything is under the microscope now. It used to be, when obviously when VAR was laid out, it was to sort of we thought it would be a good thing to sort of intervene with the big decisions, the things that massively impacted the game, and help the referees to sort of you know correct wrong decisions and stuff like that. But now they're getting really nitpicky and getting into the nooks and crannies, things that don't need attention. And I think as well they've done it so much, and especially as with decisions that they've overturned that they made the right decision in the first place on the pitch a lot of the time, and it feels like VAR is going to be even more of a talking point this season, if you can imagine, than it was last campaign.
Yeah, more rules to deal with. Andy, any extra points on that issue?
I think it's largely covered. I mean, it's been a bit of a slow news day because it's not a match-altering decision, and yet it's got like 1 million impressions. And next you can tell it was the only fixture card, fixture of the card. It's not impacted the result at all. I actually at the time was a little bit disappointed when he went to the monitor because not that I think it is, but my initial reaction was he was being called to the monitor to potentially send Finnegan off because United had an incident last year where Amar Fatah made contact with Mark Leonard's ankle and it was accidental. And Colm in his VAR review explained that kind of studs on ankle could often be a red card. Now, I'm not proposing that would have been the correct decision, but that's what I thought at the time was potentially going to be the outcome. So when it was just a changed yellow, I was disappointed because I was hoping, for United fan reasons, that would be the decision. I'm not saying that's what the correct decision was, but that's what I thought was going to happen. But yeah, I mean, it's Yoro's not committed a foul, and Dundee would have been booked and actually got a booking in the second half, so he would have been off. And Dundee would have had a very dangerous free kick. But yeah, I think you just have to take that on the chin if you don't want there to be more VAR. And it almost felt like they were, as you say, trying to shoehorn their way in because I think, although it would have been frustrating if Dundee had a dangerous free kick and Yoro had been booked, that is the reality of it. As Calum said, it's not really a case of mistaken identity because I don't think Finnegan's committed a foul, and the fact that Yoro's not committed a foul isn't relevant because VAR shouldn't be intervening in those circumstances.
Yeah, and going back to the game as a whole and maybe Dundee United's form, and you spoke about, Andy, about Jim Goodwin maybe looking too much into stats after the games. But on the face of it, what is it? 10 goals conceded in the last 3 games, none scored. But do we think that really tells the whole story of the United performances, especially like the ones against Celtic? And then, you said they didn't create too many chances against Dundee, but you could argue that Dundee were maybe just a little bit more clinical.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it's got a point, right? I mean, United, you'll know, Ethan, hit the Ludwig 5 times against Celtic, which is unfortunate, but they lost the game 4-0. They were 4-0 down after an hour, and I was at the game at Tynecastle, and again, they played all right in spells, but they were 2-0 down in 10 minutes and 4-0 down just after an hour. So, and some of those chances created came after that. So for me, I place no relevance on chances created when you're already 4-0 down in the game because they're not match altering. So things need to improve quickly. I think for the first time, Goodwin is actually under some serious pressure. First time in a long while, and I think that the supporters do not like losing to Dundee, and I think he's under some serious pressure. The thing for me that I can't understand is he made 6 changes from the weekend before. Goodwin's been in the job 3.5 years. Anyone have a guess how many players he's used in 3.5 years at United?
Oh, that will be some number. Oh, 3.5 years. They bring in a new squad every season. I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go quite high, and then I'm probably gonna overshoot it. I'm gonna go
Try and ruin it for me.
6 to 8.
So they've used 91 players since he took the job in February 2023. 91 players. That's like more than 8 separate sides. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I saw an interesting interview with Milanovic, the Australian that was at Aberdeen last season, saying, trying to knit together guys from so many cultures in the dressing room is quite challenging. United had 11 different football nationalities in the pitch now. Will Ferry and Jack Walton are both English. Will Ferry plays for Ireland, but 11 different football nationalities and 5 more on the bench. So it's guys from all over the world arriving in Dundee. And United are not in the market of Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen being able to pay transfer fees, so they are having to sift in markets where it's cheaper. But pulling together such a random variety of players from the 4 corners of the world, and then not only that, but making 6 changes from the Celtic performance, which in itself wasn't a bad performance. I know I got cuffed 4-0, so I'm slightly contradicting myself, but there were elements in the performance alike. But making 6 changes is a lot of changes when it wasn't enforced. So I think that's my concern. Is that Goodwin is making huge amounts of changes to the personnel and putting in guys that you really need to keep an up to date knowledge to actually know who they are. Whereas Dundee have a more settled side. I mean, sure, every side makes more changes than they used to, but Dundee have a much more settled spine inside, and they've lost players from last year, but it's been a little bit more tinkering rather than the wholesale changes that Goodwin's adopted.
Do you think for United, the game on Saturday coming against Kilmarnock being the only team below United in the league, do you think that puts even more pressure on that game for Jim Goodwin?
Of course it does, because if they lose it, they go bottom of the league, and bottom of the league after 4 league games. But I mean that creates pressure earlier in the season. I mean, Jack Ross was sacked in August, albeit United were getting annihilated at that point. So things can turn south pretty quickly. And he's never been particularly liked by a portion of the United support, but they've accepted, certainly in the first couple of years, he did a good job on the whole. He won the championship relatively comfortably, I'd say, albeit the one thing he's always been questioned is his record in big games. His derby record's not good. His record in the championship, the Rafe wasn't good, and he's never had a cup run with us. So, and then got his fourth place, albeit it was probably a slight false position. And then last season it was like okay, but it was under par. And so, yeah, if we go bottom of the league, absolutely. And then they've got Motherwell on the Wednesday after. So if they were to go bang and lose both of those, the question that's unknown is what the owner will do, because the owner made a lot of managerial changes when Tony Askar was advising him. Since Tony Askar's left the club 3.5 years ago, Jim Goodwin's been the only manager. So he's quite a hands-off owner living in America, and I don't know what he'll do. And ultimately, he's the one that calls that. So the fans might want it, but if he's living in America and he's not attending the games, he might, and he likes Goodwin, then he might not change it. But I mean, there will be some serious heat if they lose the next couple of games for sure.
Yeah, and on the opposite side, Callum, it's obviously been I would say an excellent turnaround from the very start under Stephen Presley. I remember we had a conversation, and you weren't very. You were probably more confident than most Dundee fans, I would say, but I don't think you would have expected to be sitting in this position now, and now 3 consecutive seasons with wins at Tannadice.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning of last season, I think a lot of Dundee fans just didn't have the patience for the complete turnaround from Doherty over to Presley. I think, like, on paper, the Presley appointment, I can understand why fans were apprehensive, a little bit disappointed, to say the least. But it wasn't, for Dundee, it wasn't just a case of changing the manager, it was changing the entire coaching setup and the way that we recruit players. Like you're seeing that this season as well. Dundee are taking an age to sign players because they want to bring the right one in when it comes. Two of Dundee's best players last season, Cam Congreve and Ethan Hamilton, they were signed towards the end of the transfer window last season. So Dundee fans have had to learn to be a bit patient to get the performances on the pitch that they have come to expect. And I think it's a testament to Presley that he's been able to sort of stay in that job, deal with that pressure, deal with the fan vitriol at times. There was a game at Motherwell last season where fans were putting up banners saying Presley out and John Nelm's out and things like that, which ironically was pretty much the very moment that things started to turn around for Dundee. After that, we get 3 straight wins in the league, culminating with the win at Tannadice last season. So yeah, patience has had to be something that Dundee have learned over the past season, and I think it's starting to bear fruits. So very happy that things are starting to turn around and we're learning lessons from previous seasons, and we're not this yo-yo club that sort of bounces between the Championship and the Premiership. So yeah, very pleased with how things are going, and it's a difficult game at the weekend. We've got Hibs. Hopefully take advantage of their European exploits and keep the momentum going, and hopefully keep on the top half of the table.
Yeah, I think just to build on that there. I think for me, Dundee, there's an air of stability now that I maybe didn't see in the past, especially under Tony Doherty. I don't know. Maybe it's just the vibe of Stephen Presley as a guy. He just gives you more of that stable sort of feeling. He has built it very slowly, because Ethan, I remember we were sitting here at the start of last season talking about Hibs beating Dundee. I think it was 1-0, but it was something silly, like they had like nearly 80% possession, 30 shots or something like that, and we were going, Dundee are in real trouble here. And we've just over a year later now, and they've had some squad turnover, but the majority of the signings I think have looked okay so far. one player as well that I've been particularly impressed with, who I was like, where was this guy last season? I mean, I knew he was all right, but this season he's just come out the blocks firing. Is Joe Bevan as well? I think he's been terrific. Particularly, I thought in that Aberdeen win a few weeks when they beat Aberdeen. Before, you know what I'm trying to say. When Dundee beat Aberdeen, particularly then, I thought he was amazing. And we spoke about in the Celtic game as well. He was one of the players that we looked at, and I think if you compare them to their noisy neighbours, I think they have that air of stability that Dundee United haven't had, especially under Jim Goodwin. And like Andy mentioned, the amount of squad turnover and the amount of players that he's used as well.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with all of what you said there, and I think the two halves in this game were a little bit, well, I wouldn't say polar opposite, but there wasn't many chances in the first half, and then the game kind of opened up in the second half. But obviously, the one chance, if you could call it a chance, for Dre Wright, what a goal it is. I think I don't know why he thinks to shoot from there. He obviously uh, backs himself to strike it. I think we've seen him score a few goals from range before, and obviously had the quality to find the bottom corner. And where
See the
you,
way, see, I love goals like that. By the way, see the way he caught it, just with his foot. It was so sweet, and it just slices through the air. It's a beautiful thing to watch. You see it just traveling through all the Dundee United bodies, and then finding the corner. It's a satisfying goal to watch. It was a terrific strike.
and I think he's probably been one of the biggest players under Stephen Presley. Were you on commentary at the weekend, Callum?
No, unfortunately, I was not. It was Liam who was on commentary with Simon Murray. Actually, he
Yeah.
joined DEETV for commentary for the derby. Um, but yeah, I mean, Dre Wright, he's exactly the type of player Dundee needed after Jordan McGee left the club. You know, an experienced Premiership player, versatile, can play in a number of positions. I think he's played pretty much all across the back line. And just that added experience. It was actually interesting that going back to the final derby of last season at Tannadice, where Dundee got beat 3-0, Dre Wright was a massive miss in that game. We badly missed his experience, and I think without that, United just sort of ran over the top of us in that game. So I think Presley very much learned his lesson from that and felt like he needed some experienced heads in that back line for this derby. And yeah, it's an excellent strike. Dre Wright does have previous. I mean, he's done it before for Dundee. He scored a long range strike last season in a game against St Mirren. So he does know how to hit them. But I think what also helps him is that he's got loads of space to sort of run into, and he's got loads of time. Nobody's closing him down. So he doesn't really have a lot of options. So he's, just why not have a go? And, Dre Wright, he does have that sort of ability, and fortunately it's come off for him, and yeah, I'm very happy for him.
Yeah.
Andy, was that something that frustrated you at the time, the amount of time Dre Wright was allowed to sort of saunter into the sort of attacking areas and then be able to get the shot off?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, Yoro gives away the ball and then he should react better. But even if he reacts better, I'm not sure if he'll necessarily, because he's running one way, he would have to kind of pivot back the way. And then there was a few Dundee fans that were obviously enjoying the kind of, liking to kick the boot into Will Ferry. But it's not Will Ferry's fault either, because he's got Joe Bevan on the overlap, and like Michael Forbes is literally pointing at Joe Bevan to go out. Could Forbes have come out a bit more? Possibly, but I think you've just got to credit the strike, to be honest. I think obviously, I agree he was in space, but it's because Yoro's trying to go forward. He's given away the ball. His reaction was crap, but I'm not necessarily. Maybe if he turned around and pivoted quicker, he might have put a bit of pressure on Wright, whereas he actually had time to pick his spot and, as you say, put the laces through it. But yeah, I mean, it was a really good strike. I mean, it's one of those that it fits, because at first you don't want your goalkeeper beaten from that range, but you see the replay, it's kind of. He struck it sweet. It's down the hill at Tannadice as well, which is another factor, and it was a really good goal. So yeah, it was a frustrating one, but you've got to give him credit. And as Cam says, he's had long strikes before, so whether Forbes could have stepped up, I'm not sure. But yeah, I would rather credit probably Wright for the strike rather than necessarily taking any issue with any of the defending there.
Yeah. I mean, I think you seen not as good a goal last night, but a similar one in the Liverpool game with the Cody Gakpo, where Newcastle, if you've seen that one, just sit off him and allow him to strike the sort of we are back in our chances if you're having a shot maybe from there, and sometimes you've just got to take your hat off to the attacking player, and it was an excellent finish from Bray Wright. And then the second goal, obviously the one chance taken the second half.
From Ash.
Yeah, less of a pretty goal. Sort of following a corner, it falls to Alan Forrest, I think it is, who takes a shot which is wide of the target, but it flicks off Owen Bevan, and then it's in. And at that point, I think it takes the game away from United. And I don't think, I imagine none of you guys really seen it going anywhere but a Dundee win after that, Cal.
I mean, if it were any other fixture, maybe. But
yeah, exactly. I've still got PTSD from whenever it was March, April. Albeit the last two derbies last season weren't overly important, but yeah, I mean there was 90 seconds left there, Callum. So were you still in Dens, or were you on commentary, or did you left?
I was on commentary for that game. Yeah.
How many of them had left by the time? Do you reckon? What percentage do you support had left when you were 2-0 down?
I reckon about half the stadium had sort of filed out. Certainly, like half of the south enclosure had gone. Because just nobody could have seen Dundee getting back into that game. Like literally, one of my commentary lines as we were entering stoppage time, it was just, take it on the chin. You can't win every derby, and you just move on to the next one, and then what happens, and thank goodness for Ross Graham and his total self-destruction in that game to hand Dundee a point in that one. But that was, I think that plays on everyone's minds going into the last sort of 20 minutes of that game, because if United get one, and they had a couple of decent chances towards the
I think it just knocked United's momentum, because United had actually started, as I said, the one clear-cut chance I felt we did have was Euros about 5 minutes before the goal. The second goal, that is. And I think United had started the second half quite well, and that killed the momentum. And I've got more issue with that. I didn't like Walton's punch at the corner. It's 2 weeks in a row we've conceded from a corner. And I don't really think it's that lucky necessarily, because he's standing in the middle of the box. And yes, it hits off him, but he could have, knocked it back in. It was crap defending from United, and, well worked goal from Dundee, corner to the back post, back into dangerous area and guys in the right places. But yeah, I think it knocked United back for a few minutes, but I'm with you, Calum. I'd not given up hope until the stoppage time was kind of on the board, because you know what it's like. If you get one back with 5 minutes left, then you just throw everything at it.
Yeah. So if any one of those, I think it's the effort from Satsford in particular, I think was probably one of the better ones in that last 20 minutes. If that goes in, things get a lot more nervy, and it can completely change the momentum of the game. And in Dundee's games this season, we have, just because of the style that Presley wants Dundee to play, I think we have sort of tired in the last sort of 20 minutes of games, and it's left us quite open, and teams sort of get chances. It happened at Aberdeen in the game at Dens Park. Dundee just sort of tired. They weren't pressing with the same kind of intensity and aggression. So like there is a weakness there with Dundee, where they do tend to tire in the last 20 minutes. So that sort of plays on your mind, and you sort of hope that the defence is strong enough to sort of keep opposition teams out, and it just so happened that was the case on Saturday.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that derby until you mentioned it there. That was an incredible climax to a match. Just before we might not speak to either side of the Dundee divide on this podcast for a little bit. So what are your guys' aspirations for the season ahead? Because I know we're speaking about how it's at the moment, it's Dundee are on a high, and it's all doom and gloom for United, but we know how quick things can change in football. So first of all, Andy, going to you, what do you think Dundee United can achieve for this season, or look to try and strive for by the end of the season?
I mean, it's difficult to know, because I'm still getting to know the players. I mean, 7 of the guys that started weren't there last season. And I don't like what I see from Jesse Randall, the guy that was at the World Cup of New Zealand. I didn't like any of the front three on Saturday. I thought that Soko was poor and the guy Mergrim was poor. I thought the three of them offered nothing. And the Australian guys like Sapsford and Rose, whilst not great, offer a bit more. But it's difficult when you're meshing together guys from different parts of the world, as I said. So part of me thinks they should be given a bit of time to do so, but then part of me thinks, well, this is, no one asked Jim Goodwin to rip it up and start again. So, on his head be it, and we don't have time. What I would like, United's aspirations in every season are to be in the top six of the league, and we've not had a good cup run for a number of years. We've not been to Hampden as fans since 2016. We were there once during COVID, but the fans didn't get to go, and that's too long. We used to go regularly, so we've already out the League Cup, which is disappointing, and that's our own fault for not beating Montrose in the group stages and ended up as an unseeded team that got Celtic. So because you can control that in the League Cup, you win all your games in the group stages, you become seeded. So it's look at them. They need to, the good performances need to be replaced by good results. They've conceded 11 consecutive goals. You said, Ethan, they also conceded the equaliser at Rangers. So that's 11 without reply. When Jack Ross left, they conceded 13 without reply. Of course, famously 9 to Celtic in one game. And so that needs to turn quickly. I think he's under huge pressure the next couple of games. It'll be interesting to see if they did lose him. I think it'd be interesting to see how much of a noise reached across the Atlantic to the owner. But for me, I would always look at being the problem United have is that the big five, if you want to call them that, have now, the old firm have always been miles ahead, but Hearts, Hibs and Aberdeen are quite a lot more financial power than United now. And even like a Motherwell now has like 14 million quid at the bank, having done so well from the phrase player trading model always makes me laugh because every club in the world's trying to do that. But bring players through and sell them. But they've brought in so much in transfer fees and United haven't been able to do that. We're trying to sell Will Ferry, and the rumour is we might get between 2 and 2.5 million from Anderlecht, but that's not happened yet, and it's not going to improve what's already there, because even if we do sell him, we've brought in a left back, I don't think there'll be any more incoming activity. So Goodwin's going to have to work with the squad and try and improve it, but I think he's going to be under some serious pressure from the support, and it wouldn't surprise me if this is the last season that Jim Goodwin's in charge of United. I would not be surprised if he does not last the season.
Yeah, and Calum on the other side.
I think Dundee can start looking a bit higher up. Stephen Presley hasn't put like a particular target. His sort of mantra has always been about improvement. He just wants the side to keep improving season after season. So he hasn't put like a place in the table where he wants to finish. From a fan's perspective, though, I think Dundee probably should try pushing for a top six spot. I think if you look at the top six from last season, I'm not convinced about Falkirk. I think they're probably going to end up.
I think they might be crap this season now with you.
Yeah, I think there's just going to be a natural drop off. They very much overachieved last season. I don't think they're going to reach those heights again. So I think that sixth spot is open for any number of teams. I still think the top five will be the top five going into by the end of the season. Your Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, Hibs, Motherwell. I think they will be in the top five. So I think that sixth spot is open for any number of teams to compete for it. I think Dundee are in a really good position to really go for it. We've had a good start. Team is reasonably settled. There's probably going to be maybe 2 or 3 more bodies to come in, so we'll see what kind of quality we manage to get in. But I think Dundee are in a really good spot right now. There's a feel-good factor in the club as well. Presley's bought himself some credit as well, so there is he will get the time to get the team to where it needs to be, and I think things are just looking generally a bit more optimistic for Dundee than it was at the beginning of last season. So try and challenge for the top six. As far as cup runs go, 2016 for the United, Dundee haven't been to Hampden since much longer than that, 2006 I think it was, and I won't go too into that because we got beat by Gretna and it was an absolutely miserable afternoon of football to watch. and it's probably one of the worst Dundee teams I've ever seen, and it's also one of the only Dundee teams that's actually managed to get to Hampden. So make of that what you will. But it would be nice to actually have a decent cup run. I think
Dundee have been pretty unlucky with draws, Callum, to be fair to you. Like they actually, like I was saying, United, it was their own fault for being unseeded. I know Dundee were unseeded as well, but Dundee have been really unlucky in drawing the Old Firm away at kind of the quarter-final stage in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it does seem to tend to happen quite a lot, but I don't know how much that excuse flies from last season.
Well, it does. Over 20 years, obviously, it doesn't come through. But
last season, last season the League Cup group stage we were beaten by Airdrie and Alloa. So,
yeah.
And then this season the League Cup, I thought getting Aberdeen just off the back of absolutely ripping them to shreds at Dens. I thought that was a massive opportunity for Dundee to go deep into the competition, and it's just not happened. So a Scottish Cup run would be nice. I'm tempering my expectations a little bit on whether we can actually do something well in that competition. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. But I think there's just an air of optimism around Dundee, and we're looking up rather than looking down.
Yeah, I think so. So you should be. Well, guys, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been an excellent chat, excellent sort of fan insight into both sides of Dundee after the weekend's result and the season ahead. Good luck to both of you, and thank you very much to all the viewers for watching or listening. And goodbye.